Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for your patience. We were having some technical difficulties, but nonetheless, thank you for joining us. We invite you to share this link. Let people know, listen, we are on. We are scheduled to have a wonderful presentation tonight, again, on weight loss and type 2 diabetes. So thank you for joining us. Again, if those persons that you know maybe do not have Facebook or YouTube, they can certainly join in via conference call. And so the conference call number is right there. Again, 857 357 0141, access code 247965. Again, they can call in and they'll be able to listen to the presentation. And again, for those of you who are on YouTube, Facebook, please share, like this post, so that way we can send this out to as many persons as possible as we share again in tonight's study or tonight's presentation. Before we get started, let's open up in a word of prayer. Then I want to give several highlights before we begin this presentation. So let's pray. God, we thank you now for this time of sharing. We thank you for how you blessed us. We pray that you will continue to use us for your glory. Have your way even tonight as we share on this, weight loss presentation and type 2 presentation. God, have your way. Bless us and keep us. Bless our presenter and those who are watching the days to come. Thank you for just grace and mercy, how you kept us, how you sustained us. Now, God, have your way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. A couple of things, again, that you need to be aware of. Friday is our mobile food pantry, again, at 1 p.m. until 2 p.m. And so if you are indeed looking to have to be a part of that, we invite a mobile food pantry that will take place again this Friday at 1 p.m. until 2 p.m. And then also we invite you, hopefully for those of you who did sign up, we are already at the max now for our sign up participation for our ice skating party this Friday at Mill River Park. Slots are indeed filled at this point. We ask those persons who signed up that you would indeed be at the Mill River Park no later than 6:15, so you can sign your waiver for, again, ice skating. And then after which we will get on the ice skating rink at 6:30, and we'll have experiencing so difficulties tonight. I'm not sure this is unusual for our connectivity to continue to go in and out, but that just means that we got some great stuff tonight. And sometimes, but again, we do apologize for the connective issues, and we hope to move through this pretty swiftly with our connectivity problem. So again, ice skating, please make sure you show up at 6:15 on Friday. Saturdays All right, we're back. We again apologize for all the technical difficulties. We're going to get through this, I promise you. But again, please take note of all the highlights. Maybe you missed them all. We'll be sure that they go out via email. This time, I'm going to get out the way and allow Brent Peterkin, who is the director of the partnership that we have with Stanford Health. So I'm going to invite him now to share and introduce our wonderful presenter for tonight. Brent?
Hello. Hey, everyone. Thank you, Reverend Dr. Jackson. My name is Brent Peterkin. I'm the Manager of Government Affairs and Community Relations at Stanford Health. It's a pleasure to join everyone this evening, and I'll get right underway and introduce my colleague, Dr. Maria Asnes. A little bit about Dr. Maria Asnes. Dr. Maria Asnes is a director of the Center of Weight Management at Stanford Health. She's board certified in obesity medicine, endocrinology, diabetes and metabolism, and internal medicine. She received her BA in biological anthropology at Harvard College and her MD at Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx. She completed her internal medicine residency at Montefiore Medical Center in the Bronx as well, and her endocrinology fellowship at Columbia University's Medical Center in New York. She's an assistant clinical professor of medicine at Columbia University's Vagelos College of Physicians and Surgeons, and she has been with Stanford Health practicing in the community for 10 years. Tonight's talk is titled An Endocrinologist's Update on Diabetes and Obesity Medicine Beyond the News and Social Media Headlines. So once again, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Reverend Dr. Jackson and the Bethel AME family. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Asnes.
Thank you so much. Can everyone, you can hear my sound okay?
Yes, Doc, you're good to go.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Reverend Jackson, and Bethel AME Church for inviting me to talk on this very important topic. As I'm sure you all know, the issues that I'll be talking about are front and center on the newspaper, front pages of the newspapers, as well as on social media. So my goal tonight is to begin to talk about the facts and the science, because I think a lot of that has been lost in those headlines. So as Brent said, I have been with Stanford Health for 10 years and have been practicing in the community. I put this slide up to tell you that I have no relationships with any companies or pharmaceutical companies of any of the medications that I will be discussing today, but I will be discussing unlabeled uses. So this is an issue and topic that I could talk about for a whole day, but I'll try to condense it. And please, I wanted to, all of you out there are very informed now, so I wanted to start with the basics, but also take it to a higher level to talk about the science behind all the things that you've been hearing about probably, and to also talk about what I think continues to be the fundamental foundation of medicine, which are patient stories. And our fundamental goal is to help people get healthier. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about the ongoing issues of access and cost, which is so important to talk about, because the concept of health equity continues to be just a concept. It is not a fact quite yet, and we need to get to that. And lastly, I'll talk about the future treatments, and then how we got here and how we can prevent it. So the issue of excess weight, obesity, and type 2 diabetes is immense. So this is an old slide actually from 3 years ago, and this is from data from all over the country. The prevalence of self-reported obesity is 42%. In Connecticut, the data is 30%. So 1 in 3 adults with self-reported obesity, excess weight. And there is data as far as the racial disparity of this prevalence, and you can see there is immense racial disparity. And this persists in children and adolescents. So that's going to go the last part of the talk when I talk about how do we stem the tide, because the tide is continuing to spread to our young people. As far as what all these consequences are, they are something that touches everything in our bodies. So weight, we think about as a number on a scale, but from a health perspective, touches us from head to toe. I'll be talking about diabetes and prediabetes most of all today, but as you can see from this list, it can touch every part of our bodies. And as far as its health consequent medical cost to the United States, it is very large. And this is a number that is going to continue to grow. People who have extra weight, and I will focus on weight mostly today, this evening, as well as one of its related conditions, diabetes, because I would argue that we shouldn't wait for people to have diabetes, and that we know that there are increasingly safe and effective tools to prevent it by targeting weight. So the other goal of this evening is to argue what I think still needs to be argued, that obesity is a disease. It is not a failure of will, which is what kind of all we've been taught, and society continues to treat weight as something that is completely under our control. It meets medical criteria for a disease. I'm going to briefly talk about some definitions and the science of weight regulation, because I think what I always start with my patients is the science in a way that everyone can understand, because of the societal judgment around weight as being something that is either something that you can do all on your own, a failure of willpower, and all the things that come with that when you do have the extra weight. So a few definitions. Type 1 diabetes, which I won't touch upon so much today, is a disease of insulin deficiency where the body makes little or no insulin. Type 2 diabetes is a different entity. It is a disease of insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is something that's talked about in the media a lot now. This is when the body cells do not respond to the insulin that is in there and actually makes more insulin. And actually, it is the concept of insulin resistance that can lead to extra weight. As far as the diagnosis of diabetes, there are strict number criteria, and these are it. So when you go to your doctor and they show you the numbers on your labs, and now increasingly you can see them on your health portals, this is what it all means. The diagnosis of diabetes is one that is a number criteria, and it is quite strict, particularly later when we talk about access and insurance. So the other concept that I'm going to talk about is this concept of BMI, which is a body mass index. And what that is the relationship between height and weight. And there are numbers that are generated by an individual's height and weight. And that doesn't define you as a person, but there are strict medical definitions about what BMIs mean. So a BMI, a body mass index over 30, is considered in the obese range, and there are different categories as you go up. In certain ethnicities, this number is a little bit lower. It's 27 among South Asians and Asians, but in the number 30 is the number that oftentimes is what we use to define obesity. So a little bit about the basic science of what regulates weight. What have people been taught? calories in, calories out, right? That's what defines weight. How much you eat, how much you exercise, and that's it. That's what determines if you're going to gain or lose weight. If it were as simple as that, it would be easy. That is the strategy that has been preached for years and years and years. You know, that's even on hieroglyphics and the pyramids, actually very, very, you know, the first diets and calorie restriction. But as the science has evolved, we know that it is much more than that. And it is very important for people to know that, because what it points to is how very difficult it is to combat weight because of how complexly it is regulated. This slide is a simple one, if you can imagine. Everything talks to each other. And that's not surprising because everything in our body talks to each other. But weight and how it is regulated in the body, sugar and how it is regulated in the body is regulated by all of these things. How we feel when we want sugar translates to how it talks to the stomach, the small intestine, the pancreas, the fat, etc. So when you look at this, the concept of calories in, calories out becomes very outdated, because this is exactly what's happening in the body. It's not just what you're eating and what you're putting out. So I always say to my patients, there's two things that are true about weight. One is that it's easy to gain weight. As we get older, everything almost conspires for our weights to go up, our metabolic rates go up, certain hormones change so that there is a redistribution of fat. People know when I say redistribution of fat, what does that mean? It goes all to the stomach. And then once the weight is acquired, once it's there, the body will protect it. It doesn't know it's extra. That's probably the biggest reason why it's so difficult to lose weight. Attempts to lose that extra weight are fought by the body very, very rigorously. So everybody talks about, oh, I went on this diet and I got to this weight and it stopped. It's because, then this is very well studied, the body will start doing things to regain that weight. So I always start with this science with my patients, because I think it's very important that they realize why it's been so difficult for them, why despite their efforts, and many people who see me are putting in a whole lot of effort, why despite their efforts, things continue to progress. So indications for treatment with medications. So if people are doing those things like eating well, exercising, etc., but their BMI, there's that term again, continues to be elevated, and they're having weight-related issues, and you saw on the previous slides what those could be: diabetes, blood pressure, cholesterol, heart disease, cardio, disease like strokes, PCOS, all sorts of things, right? That those people can consider the addition of medications. Now, what have we seen about medications? I'm going to focus on a certain type of medicine because that's really what's been in the headlines and social media. You know, TikTok, Kim Kardashian, the Kardashians, Elon Musk in the New York Times, on 60 Minutes. And these are the medications that I'm going to focus on a bit for two reasons. One, they're dual application. So the way they can be used, they're used for both diabetes and weight without diabetes. And I'm going to argue they have other benefits. And the second reason, aside from their benefit, is their impact. There has been years and years of people trying to develop medicines that are effective, safe, and impactful. What does that mean? Actually do something, actually have results that are tangible. We're not talking about 5 pounds. We're not talking about 10 pounds even. We're talking about 50 pounds, 60 pounds, 70 pounds, things that will affect those weight-related issues, blood pressure, sleep apnea, fatty liver, etc. And these are why these medicines are at the front and center of social media and the media because of impact and the dual applications. So these are some of the medicines that are approved for weight, and they have been, like I said, this is something that people have been trying to find something that's been truly effective for a long time. And I'm gonna focus on a couple of things because people often ask me this question: what's the difference between this and this? What's the difference between this and this? So the two medicines, if I use the scientific name that I'm going to focus on a little bit today, because those are the medicines that most people have questions about, are semaglutide, which comes in two forms: Ozempic, which is FDA approved for type 2 diabetes, and Wegovy, which is FDA approved for weight. Same active ingredient, different brands because of the FDA approval. The second medicine, scientific name, tirzepatide, comes in two forms, two brands, same exact medication. Mounjaro, FDA approved for type 2 diabetes. Zepbound, FDA approved for weight. So oftentimes in the lay media and in social media, they're all treated like all different things. But I want you, the audience, to know what the facts are. Okay. So the other thing that is out there is that these medicines are new. And I will tell you, as an endocrinologist, I won't even say when I started training, it was a while ago. These medicines, this medicine family, this concept of a target for sugar and weight has been around for almost 20 years. The first medicine in this family that was approved was nearly 20 years ago. The concept of these medicines is almost 100 years old. Now I'm going to talk about what do these medicines do? They increase hormones your body already makes. So that's how they work. And how do they work inside the body? They do three things. One, and I'm going to talk about what they say in the media last. One, they improve how the body processes carbohydrates, sugars. That's how it works for diabetes. And how do they do that? It's very complicated, but basically what they do is improve insulin resistance. All the way back to that first slide, it helps the body not have to pump out a ton of insulin, which is a pro-fat, pro-weight hormone, to control sugar and weight. So when I talk about this in a doctor-patient way, what I say is the main thing that this is doing for you is that process that is not working optimally, correctly in you is going to be improved. Just like if you had blood pressure issues and the reason is because something is not happening in your kidney and you have to take this blood pressure medicine to correct it, that's what these medicines do. It's not magic. It's not cheating. What's happening in your body is this, and this is what's going to correct it. That's the main function. That's the main mechanism. The second mechanism of action is it slows down the stomach's emptying time. So when we all eat, we eat this food, it goes down our feeding tube, it goes to the stomach, it stays in the stomach. What these medicines do is it stays in the stomach longer. So what does that translate into? You feel fuller with less, and there's a decrease in another hormone that is a hunger hormone. In people who have diabetes and in people who have insulin resistance, prediabetes, and extra weight, this function is impaired. What does that mean? It doesn't work well. So again, going back to the concept of what is the medicine doing? It's doing something inside you that wasn't working as it should. Okay, so that's the second mechanism of action. There are other ones. And then the third one, which gets all the press, is appetite suppression. So these medicines do go to the brain and tell you to not be as hungry. That is its least important mechanism of action, because anybody can lose weight, anybody can lower their sugars if they starve. That's not healthy. That's not durable. You can't maintain it. But that is part of the mechanism. So,
Dr. Asnis,
yes,
can I ask a question?
sure.
So I know I've been going in and out, and I'm not engaging as I would like to because of my connectivity. But I would like to that the viewers who are watching, if you have questions on a particular slide or topic, if they would enter them into the chat, and then I will post them on so we can all see them, and perhaps you can answer while you're on that particular slide. If you have questions, again, viewers, we have about 25 viewing now on Facebook, probably many more on YouTube, and a few that are on conference calls. So again, we do have and again, we, like most things, once this live broadcast is concluded, many others will also view this over time as well. So again, if you have questions, please place them in the chat in the comment section there. Thank you.
So I always say, like I said, the foundation is the patient, and the goals are the patient's health. So I always bring real life patient stories to these talks, because I think when we talk about science and headlines, etc., we lose track of what are we trying to do here, and it's to have people be healthier. So this is a patient, and I think we don't have as much time, so I'm going to talk about her and what we did and the science behind it, and then go forward to more of the cardiovascular implications. So this is a woman that I've known now for 4.5 years. She initially saw me, and every evaluation starts with a conversation. So a conversation between the patient and I, where we talk about how they got to me, and that includes a very significant conversation about weight history. And you can see here that this lady, 66-year-old woman, came to me with an initial weight of 252. Her highest weight ever was 350 pounds prior to surgery. The lowest weight was 160 pounds after surgery. We talked about her life, what she ate, when she ate it, portion size, how much exercise, what her work was like. All of these things, what I call external factors, really influence what I think should happen, and what I think would help her the most. She had has a current history of high blood pressure and prediabetes, and a history of diabetes in pregnancy, which is a very strong risk factor for diabetes later in life. In fact, it's a 50% increased risk if you have a history of gestational diabetes. As far as her surgeries are concerned, she had bypass surgery in 2008. That is a type of bariatric surgery procedure. She had a family history, as most people who see me do, of other issues, including weight and diabetes. And here on her medication list, she was on 1, 2, 3, 4 blood pressure medicines. So that's an immense medication burden, right? So her BMI was 42, well above that 30 threshold for obesity. Her fasting sugar was 141, which is in the diabetes range. Her hemoglobin A1C, 6.4%, to remind you, was just at the top of the prediabetes range. Diabetes is 6.5, and CRP is an inflammation marker. So oftentimes when people have sugar and weight issues, their inflammation overall is high. That is coming from the fat in the stomach producing inflammation factors that spread throughout the body, promoting things like blood pressure and diabetes, prediabetes, and other things. So this has been her journey with me here in the last few years. So she started, you see, with a weight of 252. I saw her November of last year was the last time I saw her. And you can see as she followed with our program with nutritional support, seeing the registered dietitian, encouraging her to exercise, and along with medications, which I'll tell you what the medicine was in a second, went down 108 pounds and 20 inches off her waist circumference. That middle part of our body that carries all that bad fat came down quite a bit. And that's a 42% total body weight loss from when she started to now. And as far as the other health goals, I always say that it's so important to not just look at the number on the scale. That's part of it, right? That's one goal. But the other parts that we're targeting are the health goals. How much impact are we having on those? So just to interpret these numbers for you, her fasting sugar, that 141 in the diabetes range, all the way down to normal at the last visit, that hemoglobin A1C of 6.4, just at the cusp of diabetes, went to 5.3%, which is in the normal range. The inflammation markers went to normal. Her cholesterol all improved. And really importantly, she went down to one, if you remember, 4 medications for blood pressure. She went down to 1 and is down to 1 medicine for blood pressure. How did we do this aside from counseling her and supporting her? It was with the medicine semaglutide, which everyone knows as Ozempic, and Wegovy. It's a once weekly injection, and it is, her journey was really beat the studies, and I'll just go through the slides quickly because I want to get to the cardiovascular implications. I think those are really important to touch on today. In this study, the average weight loss was 15%. To remind you, she was at 42%. So that's a really important example of, real life example of what the medication, along with really good support nutritionally, exercise, sleeps, can do. The other question I often get asked, and a hesitation that many people have, is are these medicines forever? Are these medicines forever for diabetes? Are they forever for weight? And the answer is, for most people, yes. And I will say that the threshold for something being that you can come off as a medicine, that you can come off just because it's for weight, just because it's for sugar, is one that is, I believe, a construct, a societal bias against these issues, because that there is still this prevailing notion that this is because people did it to themselves, and if they just tried hard enough, it would go away, and the medicines is a part of that that trying, and once you get to your goal, you should be able to come off. For the vast majority of people, these are medicines like any other. They need to be continued, just like a medicine for other issues. They are not cures. They don't change you forever. The forces that promote weight and sugar are very powerful. So you have a tool that can help. That's a tool you're going to need in the long term. That is the current data. And this is a study that showed that. So these are people who went on medicine, right? So this blue line here are people who went on medicine. Their weight came all the way down. And then at 68 weeks, the medicine was withdrawn. What happens? And these are people who are doing healthy diet. They're continuing healthy diet. They're continuing exercise. The medicine is stopped and everything comes back. So
we have a question. I guess we have a question.
Sure.
Sister Johnson, good to see you. The question is, why are insurance companies denying these medications for weight loss? The results speak for themselves. If you can maybe share a little bit about that.
Well, obviously you're going to hear my opinion, which is that it is a failure. I'm going to use that as a strong language here. It is a failure of recognition of the proof in the pudding in patients and the science, and it is a prioritization of cost right now. The medicines, and I have a slide later, and I could talk about this for hours, honestly. I have a slide later. The medicines are costly. They're costly. So what insurances are seeing is the cost right now. They have not yet, and I have heard they are starting to look at what the savings is later, 10, 20 years down the line. But our current model of healthcare is to assess cost benefit in the short term. And that has not been established to be favorable yet. I think from an individual perspective, from a patient perspective, who you see this one patient I have, thankfully so lucky to be able to have helped, so many people. From a patient perspective, they know how valuable it is. But from an insurance standpoint, it is incredibly costly, and they are trying very hard not to approve this. If you're talking about Connecticut, and I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, if you're talking about Connecticut, 1 in 3 adults with excess weight, many of those people with sugar abnormalities on the cusp of diabetes, right? The insurance companies right now are saying, we will cover it if you have diabetes. But this lady right here, 6.4, almost diabetes, she, sometimes you're 1 point away and they won't cover it because, again, the societal bias against weight is that it's cosmetic, despite the data of improvement in all aspects of health, including cardiovascular, which I want to touch on real because I think it's really important. Despite that data, it is about cost. So the other thing I'm going to say, and I'll talk about cardiovascular in a second, is there is data that we can prevent diabetes. So this was a study done by the American Diabetes Association that showed that there can be a decrease in 10 years of 60%. That is a staggering amount. That is a lot of people not getting diabetes. And diabetes is not just a sugar issue. It is a cardiovascular issue. It is a cardiovascular risk equivalent. People who have diabetes have an increased risk of heart attack, stroke, dialysis, et cetera, incredible cost to the health system. So when I talk about looking at the future, that's happening a little bit, but right now, the reason why we're not getting the coverage we need, I would argue, is that it's incredibly costly. I know we don't have that much time left, so I want to talk about one thing really quick. which is cardiovascular benefit, and the argument that some of these medicines, many of these medicines, are more than just diabetes drugs. They are cardiovascular drugs, and cardiovascular events, death, heart attack, stroke, is still the leading cause of death in many communities, for a variety of reasons. So anything to reduce that risk and stack things in people's health favor is something that I think is quite worthwhile. So this is a man, another real patient example, who came to me, 329 pounds, and same medicine, semaglutide, he was put on, and you can see another not unusual outcome, really good weight loss, really good decrease in abdominal fat, decrease in blood pressure, decrease in sugars, decrease in cholesterol, etc. And this patient was part of our program with Dr. Schuster, Ed Schuster, who I think you've had on too, Reverend Dr. Jackson, who's talked about cardiovascular issues. He and I started a cardiometabolic program to really target cardiac patients with a history of heart attack, stroke, stents, etc., who had extra weight, who had sugar issues, to really try to make a big impact in that population. And we've been doing that for 2 years. This man is just an example. And to validate our thoughts, even though we were seeing it in our patients, just at the end of last year, this drug, semaglutide, came out with their cardiovascular outcomes trial in people with extra weight without diabetes. And it showed a reduction of risk of cardiovascular events of 20%. This is, again, staggering number. And I think that this study and studies like it that show that some of these medicines, many of these medicines, have outcomes beyond weight, are what's going to change the insurance climate. Because I don't think insurances can continue to deny medications that will reduce heart attack and stroke. And then that's this man. So I know we're running out of time, so I really wanted to get to access. I always say, and the reason why I give these lectures to the community and to other physicians and providers is that facts, truth, science matters. And we know that there is a lot of not that out there. And so the source of information for our patients and our community is very important. And so as a health system, Stanford Health, we are very, very committed to giving truthful, factual, scientific information to the community and our patients. The other
Doc, can I, if I may,
yeah.
I got some good connectivity now for
Okay.
come back. Just keep questions. And you're okay.
Sure.
We started kind of late because of that connectivity. So one question was, what type of medicine is that's Golo pills and the Golo diet? I'm not familiar with that. I'm not sure if you could speak to that at all.
Sure. So Golo is a supplement. It has ingredients in it that have shown to have activity for inflammation and sugar and insulin resistance, cinnamon, chromium, etc. As a well adjudicated supplement, what does that mean? Has it undergone rigorous trials for efficacy and impact? It hasn't. So I think that one of the challenges I always talk about is harm versus benefit, cost, et cetera. It is a costly product. Do I think it's harmful? I think harm is only to the extent that is there something better, more effective, and less expensive out there for people. I think that sometimes what happens with products that are not let me go back, less well established from a scientific trials perspective. My hesitation is that I worry that if a more effective and impactful and scientifically backed intervention is available, that someone will go to that instead because it's somehow not medication. I don't know if that answers the question. So the other issue is, what is the insurance coverage like in Connecticut? So commercial insurance, employer-based insurance, about 15% cover medicines like Mounjaro and Wegovy and Ozempic and et cetera. Many of them have no weight loss coverage at all. Actually, it's the vast majority. Connecticut, which is a big insurance, that's the exchange from the Affordable Care Act. Exchange in Connecticut does not cover weight loss medications at all. Medicaid, Husky, there was a law actually passed last year that expanded coverage for weight loss medications. However, it has not been enacted yet. That has not been executed. So for all intents and purposes, the coverage is not there. Medicare has no weight loss medication coverage at all. And I focus on the weight loss medicine coverage because I think I've had some time to tell you that these are not just weight loss medicines. These are medicines for metabolic health. And the current climate is that we are waiting until people have diabetes to cover these medicines. And I think that is not the right thing, shall we say. To talk about cost, this is a slide that tells you how costly the medicines are. They are over $1,000 a month if you pay out of pocket. That is a high amount. Okay. So what's happening though is because of cost and because of lack of insurance coverage, we are veering away, and this is a mild way of saying it, health equity, because what's happening is because they're costly, people who can afford it can get it, but a lot of people can't afford it and they're not getting it. So that the current system is exacerbating health inequality. And as you remember from the first slides there is already an inordinate amount of health inequality in terms of who is being affected by these issues of weight, diabetes, metabolic issues. So you can see they are very costly for a variety of reasons. They're less costly in other countries, but most medications are less costly in other countries. So this is, I think, again, to use strong language, failure of our healthcare system to control these costs. So in summary, what I think, and I went fast, as I said, I could talk about this for days, hours. Extra weight and its consequences are the health challenge of our time. I think I've shown that obesity, excess weight, is a disease and chronic illness, and that the regulation of it is complicated. In addition to what we know, healthy eating and activity, there are safe and effective treatment options. And the medicines that I have talked about and have helped so many of my patients are more than just diabetes drugs. Most recently, the cardiovascular benefit has been shown, and that there are new medicines and treatment options in this pipeline that are coming that will be even more impactful. But the barriers now are significant. Cost and access are really important considerations. And lastly, I would be very happy to never have to see a patient for these reasons again. This is an inordinate problem for our society, the health of our society for both physical, mental reasons, the economic consequences of the health conditions that can come with extra weight and diabetes. And I think, in addition to focusing, which I focused a lot on these impactful treatments, we must focus on the ways to stem the tide. So what am I talking about? Things like access to good and effective quality health care from the beginning of life, from really good access to care for pregnant women, for children, etc. Access to healthy, good foods in schools, in all of our communities. The importance of activity. I think, again, in schools, focusing on activity, lack of screen, decreasing screen time in schools. And I think talking about that is more important than even talking about the treatment options, but they go together. We have to talk about what's available now, and then how do we stem the tide. I really am a very, very big believer in that, because I will tell you that when I first started doing this a long time ago, the number of patients, the need has grown exponentially. And I don't want to see that. That's not good for the health of people, and it's not good for the health of our society. And we need to work on that as well. So that's how I'll end. And I'll take some questions, and to tell you that I am part of a wonderful group of endocrinologists at Stanford Health, an ever-growing practice because of the ever-growing need, and we have locations all over Fairfield County. Thank you for your time.
Yes. Did you conclude?
I did.
Okay. I apologize again. I'm still going in there. I'm not certain what is going on tonight. There was one other question, and you may have answered it already. Do you have any examples of people who aren't obese and are pre-diabetic?
Yes, I don't have it in my slide deck, right? So one of the things that I often see are people who are in the BMI, going back to that definition, under the obesity category 30, in the 27s, etc. They can see it happening. They have prediabetes, and these are often younger people. Prediabetes in women, a lot of times they have polycystic ovarian syndrome. They have a family history of diabetes. They're not quite there yet. they do meet criteria for medications. I always, despite the fact that I prescribe a ton of medications, I think part of the assessment is to really talk about the other things that need to happen as well. Sometimes it's already happening in healthy eating, exercise, etc. But for this to be durable for people, I need to talk about those healthy, what we used to call lifestyle interventions as well. I will say that for many people who struggle with weight, it is a cycle of frustration. They're trying, nothing happens. They're trying, nothing happens. And it is very much easier to be encouraged when you encouraged to continue to do all the right things, so to speak, when you see something happening. And that is where the additional intervention of medications can really help. I do have I have many examples. I don't have that in this particular slide deck, but yes, that would be a patient that those are many patients I see for sure.
So again, thank you, Dr. Agnes, for your presentation tonight. I'm going to conclude because, again, I never know when I'll be back out, kicked out of the platform. And so, again, thank you so much. Perhaps we will share in some further presentations. And I know for our congregation, including myself, have gone through thyroid issues. And so because you're endocrinologist, I'm sure you could give us some helpful information about how to navigate those particular health challenges. But I'm good now, but I know others in our congregation who are now going through the same thing. And so, but thank you so much for your information that was shared. And we look forward to our continued partnership in the future. All right. Thank you so very much. Thank you, everyone.
Having me.
Yes, amazing. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And again, we're grateful for all of you, and we hope to see you again in the next couple of days here at Bethel Church for a number of issues for the weekend. God bless you. God keep you is my prayer. Amen.
Amen.